911. What's the address of the emergency? 911.
My wife.
What's the matter? Tell me where you're at.
She shot herself.
Okay, take a deep breath for me. Take a deep breath. Come on. I need you to help me here. Okay?
Yeah, so just so you know, we're 60 or nigh. This guy that we're going to, retired ISP. Yeah, but he's super volatile. He's torched off rounds. He's done all kinds of shit. So we're waiting for all of us to get here to go in and be aware that it could turn into something major. Wait with him.
Get gloves? Send in medical.
Got that?
Yep. Central 20.
Do you have anything?
No heartbeat.
Lividity?
Not seeing anything.
The recordings you have just heard and seen are evidence of what happened in the aftermath of Kendy Howard's death on February 2nd, 2021. Before we begin, we would like to extend our deepest sympathies to the family and loved ones of the victim in this case, Kendy Howard. Divorce can be heartbreaking for some couples, but for one 48-year-old Idaho woman who tried to make her marriage work for more than half her life, divorce wasn't an ending she was dreading. After 27 years, Kendy Howard was ready to move on. Her family and friends said that she was so elated about the decision that she was practically giddy about starting the next stage of her life. She was planning for a bright new future, one that did not include Daniel Howard. Kendy was a bubbly, outgoing person who loved the outdoors. She was the mother of 2 children, a daughter from a previous relationship, and a son she shared with Dan Howard. The couple lived in Athol, Idaho, a community that is part of the Coeur d'Alene metropolitan area. Kendy was taking concrete action to break ties with Dan Howard, a former Idaho state trooper who was jealous and controlling. She had recently made an offer on a house in Kamaya, Idaho, 176 miles away from Athol. That's where she rekindled a relationship with her high school sweetheart, Daniel Pardo. She had given notice at a company she worked for 20 years. Her dream was to open an antique store. But as the conclusion of the Howards' divorce grew near, tension between Kendy and Dan was reaching a breaking point. In the early morning hours of January 29, 2021, just 4 days before her death, Kendy made a distress call to her new boyfriend. She didn't speak to him directly, but left the line open so he could hear what was happening. He would later testify at Dan Howard's trial that Kendy was distraught and emotional, and he heard sounds of thuds in the background. He hung up and called Kendy's parents, who called 911.
Central Dispatch, this is...
Yes. I had a call from my daughter, Kendy Howard.
Okay.
She called in a panic, and I know her husband just got home from Alaska, and they're getting a divorce, and it didn't sound very good out there.
Tell me exactly what happened.
We was in bed, and my wife just got a phone call from a and here, I'll let you tell about.
I got a call from a friend that she called them, and she's in a panic and then hung up, and I've been trying to call her, and she won't answer. She's had trouble with him before. Dan Howard, you guys have been there before.
Okay. Are you at that location now?
No, I'm in.
Okay.
And I got a call from another friend.
Were there any weapons involved?
I don't know. He has weapons, and we've been there before because he pretended to like that. He'll kill you and take you with him before he does that. She just called her friend that was in a panic, and then the phone hung up. Give me a second. Just call me. Hello? Hello? That's it. Is that it? Yes. The cops are on their way, Kendy. The cops are on their way. Is that okay? Okay. Stay on the line with your dad. What? Stay on the line with your dad. Okay, she's calling me. She's in a panic. She asked if Dad's sick. That's a sign that she needs help.
Okay. What is she saying? What's going on?
Pardon? No.
Is she saying what's going on?
No, because he's there listening. That's why she said it. And she's crying.
Okay.
It's crazy. I told her not to frickin'.
Okay. All right. Do you think it's been physical?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys were there last summer because he pretended to commit.
Okay. Okay. Hold on just 1 second.
I just said I'm on the phone with the cops, and she said, yeah.
Is she saying anything?
She's on the phone with her dad right now.
Okay.
After Kendy's parents placed that call, police were dispatched to the Howard residence to conduct a welfare check. The officers reported that Kendy was anxious and scared, but seemed relieved when they arrived. She packed a bag and went to stay at her parents' home that night. When Kendy called her new boyfriend later that morning to tell him what had happened, she was upset and sobbing. She said she had woken up in bed to find Dan looming over her. He was dressed in black and wearing gloves. She spotted a gun magazine on the floor. She believed he was going to kill her. Her new boyfriend and her parents begged her not to return to the house the next day, but Kendy insisted that she had to go back. She wanted to make sure her animals were okay, and she had an eye appointment to keep. Police would be called to the home again on February 2nd, this time because of a 911 call placed by Daniel Howard. Body-worn cameras by the responding officers captured his demeanor at the scene. He claimed Kendy had shot herself with a handgun while taking a bath on the second floor.
So medical's going to disturb your scene.
Oh, please, no.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I honestly haven't seen it. I know that she's.
No. Please don't tell me it's gonna go away.
Hi, sir. Good, how are you?
Oh, please.
Do you need anything?
Investigators noted in their reports that although Dan made loud wailing noises while they were at his house, there were no physical indications of crying, such as tears or mucus. As one officer wrote, the long-term excessive show of emotion seemed especially odd for a seasoned former law enforcement officer and former Marine. After they checked on Kendy and determined that there were no signs of life, officers briefly discussed how to handle notifying Dan of his wife's death.
Hey, Zach.
Yep.
Do we give him? This is a different case. So given the circumstances of him and emotions and things like that, Do we want to tell him? I don't think medical. Did medical tell him that she did?
I don't think so.
Do we want to tell him, or do we want to wait?
You better tell him.
Okay, I got it. Actually, you know what? You haven't done one. Go tell him.
Okay. Before I take pictures?
Yeah.
Okay. What's his name?
Thank you.
Dan? Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Dan? Hey, Dan, I'm Deputy Wheeler. I'm sorry to inform you, but your wife is passed, sir.
No! God damn it!
Hey, Dan? Hey, Dan? Is there anyone that we can call for you? Anyone that
It's
can...
good toasting, my... Oh my God!
Is there anyone we can call to give you some support or anything like that? Any family that... Dan, I know this is hard, but when is the last time that you saw your wife alive? I know this is tough.
I don't know.
How long ago? Can you recall?
What time is it?
Did you call 911 when you heard the gunshot?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. Oh no. I didn't.
Well, help us out with the time frame, all right?
I didn't think it was a gunshot. I was
Okay.
downstairs,
Okay.
TV going. It sounded like something hit the floor or something. I don't know.
When was the last time you saw your wife before she went to go take a bath?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
2
Hour and a half?
Okay.
Okay.
Hour and a half or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. I'm out of it.
It's about 11:15.
Maybe 9:30.
9:30 or so?
I think.
Okay.
I don't know. It might be wrong. Oh my God.
Despite his best efforts to present himself as an innocent man, investigators were immediately suspicious of Dan Howard because they knew he had a volatile past. In 2013, after he found out Kendy was having an affair with their neighbor and friend Matthew Wood, his response was extreme and multi-pronged, according to the Kootenai County Prosecutor's Office. Dan pointed an assault rifle at Matthew and threatened to splatter his brains all over the wall. He fired a shotgun at the roof of the house, stole his guns and mail, and poured syrup in his vehicles. He graffitied the lawn so conspicuously it could be seen from Google Earth satellite imagery. Dan also sent Matthew vulgar and threatening messages telling him he was lucky to still be breathing and that he understood why men kill their old ladies. He followed Matthew around in his patrol vehicle and confronted him at work, where he ripped a piece of metal off his desk and smashed it into his laptop computer. The neighbor grew so fearful of Dan that he eventually fled his Athol home and moved to Washington State just to get away from him. Dan Howard was charged with first-degree stalking, aggravated assault, and malicious injury to property in connection with those crimes. He admitted to some of the acts, but not all, and agreed to pay restitution to Matthew. When officers interviewed Dan at his house on the night of Kendy's death, he attempted to portray his wife as irrational and unstable. He claimed that she had threatened to harm herself many times before.
Did she ever make any statements that had you concerned about her well-being?
Yeah, about every day. Well, it's just she's so emotional. You know, she tells us, well, we should split up, and I agree with her, and then she'd go the other way.
How long has this been going on?
This hitch, last hitch, we're pretty distant, you know. I knew something was up, but
Last month then?
yeah, whatever that turned out to be. Yeah, pretty distant.
Do you suspect she was cheating on you again?
I asked her that. I asked her that to give me closure, because, you know, that would be it. But she said she hadn't been.
You believe it?
Man, her behavior, I don't know. It just doesn't add up. Okay?
What doesn't add up?
She's behaving the same way she was before. And, you know, before we made a go, that was pretty good. And, when she said she didn't want a divorce, or she does want a divorce, it changed about every other day.
Dan said his marriage to Kendy became strained because they had a long-distance relationship half the time. He worked in Alaska's Prudhoe Bay, operating equipment with a schedule of 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off. That wasn't always the case. Back in 2014, Dan resigned his job of 19 years as a trooper with the Idaho State Police following his suspension. His stalking behavior toward Matthew Wood led to his downfall. When law enforcement served a warrant on his property in connection with the case, they found thousands of rounds of ammunition he had stolen from the Idaho State Patrol. They also learned he had a fraudulent title for his Harley-Davidson motorcycle and a white-tailed deer that he had poached without a license. He was charged in both Kootenai and Bonner counties for these offenses. Dan Howard was sentenced in early 2015 for malicious injury to property, petty theft, title fraud, and failing to tag a deer he shot. He was ordered to serve 120 days in jail and complete 600 hours of community service. He was also given a suspended prison term for 3 years and placed on probation. Although the Howards' marriage had somehow managed to survive all of the previous turmoil, it seemed that Kendy had made up her mind this time. She was done with him. On the night that Kendy died, Dan claimed it was an issue that had come up between them regarding the divorce that had pushed her over the edge. He said she became very upset and emotional when he insisted that they include the Kamaya house in the liquidation and split of their assets, even though she had put the offer in on the house herself. Dan said Kendy had the gun because she had asked him to get it out of their safe a couple of days prior so she would have it as part of the division of assets.
She went and put earnest money on a house while I was up on the slope down there. Texted me once that she was going to go see an attorney. She saw the attorney a day before I got in, and then she had those papers. Okay. And I tried to talk her out of it. Let's talk first. Well, she didn't. And so since I've been here, we've been just going back and forth. You want to make it work? Okay, I'll encourage you to make it work. If you don't want to make it work, I'm encouraging you to still make it work. I couldn't see throwing 27 years away. But then, you know, I'm the one that filled out the papers, and I'll give her what she wants, if that's what she wants. And then she will do everything 50-50, okay. That includes the flipping house down there. Oh, which one? Wait.
So obviously you're wanting to make things work here, and she's
I'm trying to encourage her.
And she's telling you, you're not hearing me, I want the house and to change.
Okay.
I feel out of love, that breaks my heart, I'm hurting you.
Yeah, and then she'll come back and go, well, I'm not sure if I want the divorce. I'll let that cat.
Kendy and Dan's joint assets reportedly totaled about $2 million. He denied that dividing it in half bothered him, but people close to Kendy told police that he was ultra-focused on money and would hassle her about debit card transactions as small as $10. Being forced to split their substantial nest egg was viewed by investigators as a powerful motive for Kendy's murder. They weren't the only ones who viewed Dan with suspicion. When the police were processing the scene at his house, Dan took a phone call from his stepdaughter. She was yelling at him so loudly that the officers could hear her from across the room. They used this conflict as an opportunity to confront Dan about whether he was telling the truth.
think you killed your wife?
I have no idea.
Because I got to tell you, that phone
Maybe.
call put chills down my spine.
Many people.
You did it, didn't you, Dan?
No, I didn't.
I didn't think so, but now, after listening to that, I think you did, didn't you?
How the hell, she doesn't know. She wasn't here. She knows what,
Well, what does
she knows that there's a divorce going on.
What does she know? She knows something. She wouldn't have reacted the way she did.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Mother, she obviously had concerns if that was her knee jerk.
Okay, well.
You understand where we're coming from?
Yeah, what the because I had talked to my daughter about that. You think all you want.
I think you did.
No, I didn't.
The condition of Kendy's body indicated that she had fought hard to save her life. The violent struggle left her with a broken jaw, bruises all over her body, lacerations on her feet, and a second-degree burn on her arm. Prosecutors asserted that Dan asphyxiated Kendy by putting her in a carotid restraint. The technique involves placing an arm around the victim's neck to apply pressure that cuts off the blood flow to the brain. It can render someone unconscious in seconds. Investigators believe that Dan Howard then removed Kendy's clothing and carried her lifeless body into the bathroom where he filled the bathtub, put the gun in her mouth, and pulled the trigger. The gun was found in the water with her. The bullet had a downward trajectory, but self-inflicted gunshot wounds usually have an upward or horizontal trajectory. And there wasn't much blood at the scene, further supporting the theory that the wound occurred after death. It wasn't until 2 years after Kendy died that Dan was charged with killing her. 1 year later, while his trial was underway, he was arrested at the Spokane International Airport for breaking the conditions of his release that prohibited him from going within 2 miles of the airport. In March of 2024, Dan Howard was convicted of second-degree murder and domestic battery. At his sentencing hearing, he continued to deny that he had killed his wife.
I stand before you, shell of a man I used to be. Hell, I don't even have a shell left. My wife took her life. My will to live went down significantly. And when the jury found me guilty of crimes I didn't commit, it went down even further.
The judge cited a combination of factors that drove Daniel Howard to kill Kendy, including jealousy, greed, pride, anger, and revenge. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder and received an additional 10-year sentence for domestic battery that will run concurrently. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below, and give us your take on it. And please subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 1 million, and we'd love to have you along. Also, hit the notification bell to know when we're revealing a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.